We ready?
We are ready. You are.
All right, thank you very much. This is Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, and we've asked our press partners, who quite frankly in New Mexico are very effective communicators when we have an emergency. As many New Mexicans are already aware, we are battling two major fires. I also want New Mexicans to recognize that the team in the state and many of our federal partners have been dealing with fires all around the state since April, including some sparks up north again near Hermit's Peak. But today we have two devastating, enormous fires. And when I say enormous, it means that they're getting more and more complicated to address. It's the South Fork fire and the Salt fire. Started yesterday, as far as we know, early about 9 o'clock in the morning was the first notice that we had as many as 4 areas of concern. By mid-afternoon, we were clear that we had 2 named major fires. Again, South Fork and Salt, originating in or near the Mescalero Apache Reservation. As most New Mexicans are now also aware that that fire has moved and encroached in ways that required a mandatory evacuation of Ruidoso. That evacuation took place early yesterday evening. About 5,000 people in a community of about 7,000. Now, some of those folks don't live there full time, so our estimations are about 5,000 people were evacuated. Of the 5,000, it appears that many are staying with friends and family. More than 500, those numbers are hard because people are moving around, in the 10 shelters and service centers that are in largely Roswell, but we also have the Inn of the Mountain Gods as a place for people to get shelter, to stay, to get food, support, and resources. The reason for the update is to alert people that these are very serious fires. Traveling in and around that eastern, southeastern part of the state is not only not allowable right now with road closures, but it's discouraged even where roads are open. The second reason is to let you know that 20,000 plus acres, 0% containment. The message to New Mexicans is that every resource available while we combat these fires is available. More than 17 agencies are on the ground working together, both federal and state. More than 800 personnel are on the ground providing services, acting as first responders, and battling the fire. 13 wildfire hotshot crews are on the ground, and that doesn't include several other fire teams who also specialize in fires of this nature. Emergency declarations for the local areas in the state have been fully executed. That means resources can flow readily. We have an emergency manager tells us they need something, that gets addressed, and resource questions or money isn't a problem. We are putting together, those are complicated requests of federal emergency disaster requests. We expect that to be delivered to the federal government as in short order. No more, I'm looking at my team. Get that done, please, if you can, in the next 24 hours, as long as it doesn't take you from the line of the fire, and supporting and saving the lives of the Mexicans. To date, we believe that there are 500 structures and homes. I do want to provide a caution to New Mexicans. While we know that many of the images, at least we believe that we're seeing on social media, that show some pretty drastic images in a community near Ruidoso as you're going up that mountain pass, Alto and Alto Springs. We believe those images are accurate and that many of those structures have been lost. It begs the question, we don't want people informally in those areas trying to garner information out of context and putting their own lives at risk. And when you do that, you potentially put other lives at risk. And we're trying to minimize that in this response. I want to thank the Mexicans, firefighters, and first responders first. They successfully evacuated 7 patients from the local hospital in Ruidoso. They evacuated 17 residents from an assisted living facility. They managed a complicated 5,000 person, one of the largest for the state evacuations. They are battling that fire, and they stood up those 10 shelters all yesterday and early yesterday evening. The men and women who put their lives on the line, including state police, firefighters, the Guard, men and women and their families are doing amazing work. And the number of New Mexicans who on their own are helping with livestock and resources and are offering up their own homes for shelter shows me once again the generosity and compassion of the people in this state. And while I know every New Mexican has every other New Mexican in their thoughts and prayers and sends their warmest regards about getting through this disaster, I'm going to give you other ways in which you can help and provide even monetary resources. I'm going to ask a few other folks to speak about the fire conditions on the ground. And I want to close before we go to questions with resource phone numbers so that people can call us. If you've got questions, concerns, we have had some contact by people who are looking for family members. We do want to hear from you. We do want to support you. We send the Guard or the police to make those contacts. We want to make sure that the Mexicans know where they can donate and provide both monetary and other resources to support the shelters. I do want to also recognize someone. And Secretary, you're going to say a few words?
Sure.
Right. We have a brand new secretary. I'm going to have her introduce herself of Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources. It's the department that also is responsible for doing a lot of the fire mitigation, education, and support. You'll hear from the state forester that's a member of that department and lead member of the secretary's team. I thought it would be important for New Mexicans to get to know a brand new team leader who's already on the ground dealing with this fire. Secretary.
Thank you so much. And very happy to be in this role, and thanks to the governor and for giving me this opportunity. I think it is really important in my life and I hope in the lives of the staff that I'm working with and for the future of the state of New Mexico. And like the governor, I want to express my concerns about those New Mexicans who are fellow New Mexicans who are in the Ruidoso area and concerns for their safety, their futures, and we are working very, very hard to take care of them. As the governor mentioned, the Emerald staff that my agency, the hotshot crews that are there, our Emerald staff, a lot of our staff are on the ground working to put out the fire, protect the people that are in the region, and my hat's off to an incredible team. Laura's going to say a little bit about that in just a second. And then hats off to the governor's team. I mean, it's just an incredible response to take care of the issues that we're having to take care of today and tomorrow, and what we will have to do in the future. And I'm so happy to be a part of this team.
And for every New Mexican that's going to get to know her, this is Secretary Melanie Kidder.
Oh, I didn't say my name.
No, and I didn't
I
either,
forgot
but now
that
we've
part.
done. I said we're focused on protecting New Mexicans. I'm going to have General Aguilar talk about being on the ground, and again, your National Guard is always hard at work making sure that they are protecting and serving New Mexicans in any number of ways, but these disasters are foremost and front and center of the work they do every day. General.
Everybody, so for those of you that don't know, I'm the Adjutant General, and I'm also the Acting Cabinet Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Today, I wore both hats as we started our response, and so I'll give you an update on where we are from the emergency operations perspective. So we've activated the emergency operations to level 1, which is the highest level. We've got members of the cabinet who are operating at our emergency operations center here in Santa Fe. Since at least this morning, we made a decision late yesterday evening to bring everyone and ensure that we were postured to support both Lincoln County and Chaves County, who's running a lot of the sheltering operations. So we're doing that. We're deploying resources as requested. More than that, I think what we're doing is leading as far forward as we can. So I met with the emergency manager of Chaves County a few hours ago and offered our assistance and ensured that she knew she had a direct line to DHSEM, a direct line to me to ensure that we're meeting the needs of the community. So right now, the sheltering operation, one of the things that the National Guard is doing is we're now the location in Roswell where anybody can drop off donations. And so we didn't want to overwhelm all of the shelters with various types of drop-offs as they're trying to take care of our evacuees. If you take your donations to the National Guard Armory, we will distribute them to those shelters as they're needed. I've got late last night, thanks to the legislature and the governor, I got the ability a couple of years ago to be able to hire state active duty guardsmen in order to prepare for emergencies. 11 of those folks were on the payroll for a while now, and so we were able to deploy them early yesterday evening. They arrived in Roswell and were out in Ruidoso early this morning helping law enforcement. An additional 30 or so are coming in as there's been requests for support in law enforcement in Lincoln County. And then, of course, we will run the donation sites and distribute commodities across Chaves County as they're needed. And so I got to tell you, got an opportunity. So I grew up, I was born in Roswell, I grew up in Dexter, Pecos Valley's home. I'm not surprised, but incredible amount of gratitude to the community of Roswell, the surrounding area. That community is coming together. Facilities have opened up at a moment's notice. People in the community are dropping off donations and are volunteering to help. In fact, they've got a list of people that we'll be able to call over the continuing days to continue to ensure that we're taking care of evacuees. I met with some of the evacuees on the ground in shelters. As you can imagine, they're concerned. They're concerned for their homes, but also expressed a tremendous amount of gratitude for the people of Southeast New Mexico coming forward and assisting in this moment. So we'll continue to be postured to help over the coming days. The Guard response will grow as it's required, and we stand by it.
Thank you, General, and I appreciate that your team is there and you're there, and people should expect that many more of us, including myself, will be on the ground as long as we're not in the way of the firefighting. So we do no harm, but provide resources that are meaningful and make sense in the moment. I'm going to ask Laura McCarthy, who I think many New Mexicans know well and remember from all of our other emergencies and wildfires, but the state forester, Laura McCarthy, is going to give us an update on weather conditions and related issues to this fire.
This fire is dangerous and fast moving. The winds are strong. They're not quite at the red flag level, but they are close. And the fire behavior that we saw yesterday and that is picking up now this afternoon is extreme fire behavior. We are doing everything we can safely, and we are concerned about the safety of the firefighters, the aircraft pilots, the residents, and the visitors. The weather is dynamic right now. The wind, as we speak, is in the process of shifting. Since the fire started, it had been a steady southwest wind, and now we're seeing a shift with the wind coming from the west. This is because of a backdoor cold front that is going to bring moisture into the area by Thursday, possibly tomorrow. That's a bit uncertain. So it's both bad news and good news from a weather perspective. It also means that this fire is going to be dynamic, at least until we see what rainfall amounts materialize and what the effect of any rainfall is at modifying, decreasing the fire behavior. We have a transition underway today from the Type 3 team that was formed when the fire was discovered to a complex incident management team, formerly known as the Type 1 or Type 2 team that you might have heard about when we had the Hermit's Peak Half Canyon fire. They are now called Complex Incident Management Team. They arrived today. They are fully staffed and they are taking control of the fire. In a transition, 6 a.m. tomorrow, it's all the Complex Incident Management Team. The weather today has allowed aircraft up until, well, I can't say that exactly. Weather today has allowed aircraft and the ground resources like bulldozers and the hotshot crews to work together. They've been building line and finding and extinguishing any spot fires from blown embers before those spot fires take hold. With that, Governor, back to you.
All right before we take questions, I have an update already. As you heard, this fire is dynamic and moving, and now Ruidoso Downs is in a go evacuation mode. I want to repeat that in case folks living or working in that area. Ruidoso Downs is now under an evacuation order. They're in go.
And we'll take some questions at this point.
I'm not ready.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
We want to make sure we get your questions answered. You're amazing. But I do want to make sure, and I think they might have it behind me.
Yes.
We have a 24/7 hotline. And while we would like folks to think about trying to focus this hotline on getting yourselves, your family, your friends, and your neighbors resources that they might need, there's no wrong door. We want to provide information to the public in any way that they need it. You can see that number is 833-NM-FIRE-6. 833-NM-FIRE-6 or 833-663-4736. If you want fire updates, instead of overwhelming this line, again, I've just invited everyone. We want people to have accurate, stable, reliable information when we have emergencies. So you're all welcome, anyone's welcome to use this line. But we also have a website here at Homeland Security. We'll give you up-to-date information about the fire and about any of the information we provided so far this afternoon. And that website is dhsem.nm.gov. dhsem.nm.gov. So I invite you to nm.gov. Didn't I say that? I said
one
gov.
dot.
Thank you. This is why you have a good team around you. I appreciate that. And with that, I want to do the last slide, which is if you're interested in making a donation or supporting any of the nonprofits, including the Community Foundation that set up a fund resource mechanism to get as much as we can to the people who are impacted and the victims of this fire, you can go to their website, which you can see behind me, and that is fcsnm.fcsuite.com ERP donate. So it's a lot. We'll make sure that we get this so that you all can put it on at your different locations and stations so people can see it. Again, I want to thank the Mexicans for their generosity, and Mike, now I think I'm ready to take questions.
Thanks. I was just going to thank everybody for being here. If you could state your name and your news organization before you ask your question, please go ahead.
Austin Fisher with Source, New Mexico. Earlier, Governor, you talked about people calling, looking for their families. So how many people are currently trapped, stuck, or otherwise unable to leave on the established evacuation routes?
I don't have an accurate number. I don't know that anyone does. I have to say that we've gotten more of those requests informally. So someone gets it, refers it, puts it on social media, re-refers it. So that's part of the reason I really wanted to state this phone number again. If you believe that you've got a loved one that is in jeopardy, we want to know about it. We want to do everything we can to locate it. My personal knowledge is only about 2, and I believe that both of them have gotten the resources that they need, and the families have gotten the information that they need. Yes.
Madam Governor, Gabe Chavez, KRQE. Is have you heard any reports of any injuries or anything worse, or not yet so?
No, I can tell you that the hospital was evacuated, 7 patients, small hospital. The emergency response part of that hospital is still open because we might have injuries there related to your question about evacuating or such, or firefighters and other first responders. They treated 2 individuals yesterday. My knowledge about that is that those were not life-threatening in any way. To date, we have no other information about any of those issues. I'm just going to look around and make sure that that's accurate. Typically, if there are significant issues, we have them from the Guard and the state police and other local first responders and law enforcement. To date, we're unaware of any injuries and or other issues related to people as they're trying to evacuate.
Hi, Governor. Cassie Foote, KOB4. There's some information going around, mostly social media, about how these fires could have been caused by a serial arsonist. Is that something that's on your radar right now or that's being looked into?
Well, we are not immune from that same set of information sort of making its way. There are 6 BLM staffers, personnel that are dedicated to doing fire investigative work. That will take some time because they've got to get into the fire. We have nothing concrete that would demonstrate that that information is reliable, but we do not have a completed investigation. I do want to say, again, we have nothing would indicate that that is the case. Not enough information to say that that speculation doesn't have some productive origination. I think part of that, frankly, is that there were several small fires that were occurring. I said 4 before we saw these 2 major fires that might have led to that speculation. I don't want to minimize any information that really is just speculation today. There has also been active lightning in this area over the past couple of days. So it is very premature to make any sort of generic, statements about what we think the cause is. I think it's really important that a significant number of personnel with the expertise to do these fire investigations is doing that. And I said team of 6 already.
But you said they were all BLM. They're not all
Led.
BLM.
All right.
Led by BLM, team of 6 investigators.
Thank you, Laura.
Luis Apodaca with Telemundo. It was mentioned that it's extreme fire behavior. Is it something similar to Hermit's Peak fire, or is it too early to tell?
I'm going to do the non-state forester, and I'm not a firefighter, and I'm not part of the wildfire or the hotshot crew. But when you have mandatory evacuations of this nature, and you have a fire as large and rapidly moving that can shift its fire behavior, frankly making its own weather, then I want New Mexicans to treat this fire as serious as it is. It's not as big by any stretch of the imagination of Hermit's Peak and Calf Canyon. What the wind then in the very early stage of that fire was 40 to 60 miles per hour. We're talking about 10 to 20 to date. So in many ways, it's nothing like that fire. We're talking about a very dry set of circumstances. We're talking about the same kind of fuel loads. And we're talking about these fires pose serious risk. But today, this is a much smaller presence, and we're just going to have to pray and support the professionals on the ground who are battling this fire to keep it from being anything like Hermit's Peak, Calf Canyon. Did I do something that
Perfect, Governor.
That's high praise right there. Yes,
Madam Governor, Jake Chavez again.
I'm sorry.
How close to the fire is? How close is it to Ruidoso proper, in terms of location, in terms of what houses might be affected? Can you give us a guesstimate?
We can do a little bit of that. I'm going to actually ask Forrester McCarthy to do that, give you a sense about where it is on those boundaries. I do want to say this. There are a lot of apps. Many of them are very good that show you where the fire is, what the wind patterns look like. You can literally Google fire app and get on, and it'll show you what's going on, not just in New Mexico, but fires all around the country. CNN reported there are 29 fires in the West. Our reports say 11 major fires. A lot of information out there is my point. This fire moves so dramatically that I rejected having a map that would give New Mexicans a sense that if you live or have a family member in another area that you're safe. There are experts who make the emergency declarations, ready, set, go, and I don't want anything to interfere with those experts, those emergency managers who make these decisions. But I do think Ms. McCarthy can give us a sense about proximity.
The wind shift is a little concerning. There is potential with this wind coming from the west to have additional homes impacted until this backdoor cold front moves through and shifts the wind back in the other direction.
It's close.
Payne Felicity with KOAT. I'm curious, how much money is allocated for events like this one?
So that is a very important and good question. There's not a real easy number because the way that emergency declarations work is that we can tap money until we solve as many of the problems as possible. That's the whole point. And I will give you a couple of things that are really valuable for New Mexicans to know. Our reserves are healthy, our emergency response funds are healthy. These events certainly don't help, but that's what the money is intended for. The Fed money is a little bit, tighter in terms of Americans understanding what climate change and these natural disasters are beginning to do in terms of having enough resources. I've never been in a situation, even before I was governor, that you don't get what you need. The rebuilding is always, and recovery, so much harder. But just to give you perspective about orders and emergency orders, we allocate all at once anything from something as small as $50,000 to something as big as $500,000 and $1 million. We get the resources to the places it needs to be. And the people on the ground who make the actual financial requests are equipped and trained to know exactly what to ask for and where they expect those resources to land. So thank the New Mexico legislature for keeping all of those processes available so that we can support local communities like Lincoln County and Chavez County. And those measures are already in place. So money does not a resource. Monetary resources don't stand in the way, but I was going to say too that not all states are equal. There are states who are battling firefighters where it becomes a real issue. You have to take money from another really important source and then distribute it here. New Mexico is not in that situation. We have a very healthy budget in all aspects, and so that's something that we don't have to worry about, but I'm pretty sure I really appreciate the question. It doesn't make a difference to the people who stand to lose everything. It is an incredibly tragic environment, and no money is ever enough to bring back both memories and livelihoods. And I hate that we're in this situation, and my heart goes to every single person who is impacted as such.
Austin with Source of New Mexico again. Do we have any sort of status on cell phone outages in the area of the fire?
We do. We have some complications related to communication. So cell service was not readily available last night for most communities affected near the fires in Lincoln County. We are doing mobile cellular towers. They're called COWs. Those devices are being set up. We've restored most, is my understanding, of that cellular service. It is a really significant issue that we have to figure out every single time. And mountain ranges and rocky areas, the geography and topography of New Mexico are rarely helpful in this design. To date, I think we've got strong communication operations in place, but it's, again, a valuable thing to let people know that that can change. We're working to make sure that we never lose emergency communications, so we have a bunch of backup strategies. It is also true, in case someone's going to ask this question, that there have been loss of power, that large utility, largely P&M in that area. These are tricky decisions. You don't want power creating more fuel sources during a fire. You need power to keep hospitals and shelters and operations moving. Most of that power, as we understand it, have been restored. There are still members in the Mescalero Apache Nation that may be without power. We're working to get that resolved. People without power, we don't need any more risk. I have not had a chance to communicate directly with the CEO, Pat Vincent Kalan, but she and I are trading information. So I'm feeling pretty good about the spot that we're in. Valuable, valid questions about where we are.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Madam Governor, one other question. I know this is kind of early to ask, but are you already planning on getting FEMA to help those who may have lost property, structures, anything like that after everything's been contained?
Yeah, absolutely. And I said this. I just said this earlier in a newscast, and you know that I will say it again. The federal government is incredibly responsive about these emergencies in general. That includes FEMA, and they're very effective in the emergency. The rebuilding phase, they're not as effective. Now, to be fair, Congress has not done anything to change the operation of FEMA. That's called the Stafford Act, largely, that dictates what they can and cannot do. So they get to know and maybe rapidly over and over and over again. And it's incredibly damaging and frustrating to the people on the ground. But I will ask FEMA for everything and something for New Mexicans to know. I will not wait for FEMA. So in the same way where we allocate resources to rebuild and to help localities get what they need for safe water, for cleanup, for debris removal, we already have. The Department of Transportation is one of those 17 agencies out there. This is a state that will not just wait for FEMA. We will advance every aspect and expecting them to make us whole on the back end. But I want New Mexicans to expect that that journey is hard. And I wish it wasn't so.
May I add to that? Two things that I would like to add. The first is that we are working very closely with the suite of federal agencies, both on the fire response and the preparations for the post-fire response. And Representatives Vasquez and Stansberry are very involved and will be helping us with those federal agency
The whole federal
relationships.
delegation is very engaged.
Second is that the superintendent of insurance is setting up in the area to assist residents with their claims. And they do have a contact number, if it would be okay for me to read that. It just got texted to me. That number is 1-833-485-1336, and that is for residents with insurance to file a claim to get insurance assistance from the state superintendent of insurance.
The hard part is that we don't know what structures, and people don't know that yet, but it shows the proactive nature of the people who are responsible for these programs. So shout out to the superintendent of insurance, but that's gonna be the hard part. We don't know yet what we don't know. I did mention in an earlier effort, we'll get satellite imagery tonight that will give us more direct information about potential and actual losses in the area. And we will be sharing that update when we garner that information. It will really allow us to see sort of inside the fire in a way that we cannot do now because it's too dangerous to be in the heart of the fire. So we'll provide that information to you all and to the Mexicans as soon as we have it.
Cassie with KOB4, do you plan to go down to Lincoln or Travis counties anytime soon? And if so, what do you plan to do down there?
I do. People should expect me there within 24 hours. Typically, I want to be, as the incident command teams, as you heard, are now up and operating. I expect and appreciate that they do a briefing so that I know if there are any gaps with our response or our state agencies or anything that we didn't think of, that we have a chance to provide it. Those work very well. They've worked well in all of our major fires. So I'll go to those incident command briefings, and I plan to go visit as many shelters and evacuation sites and help. I am no stranger to serving meals and cleaning up and listening to folks who expect the state to provide both comfort and actual responses about things that they might have lost, or even helping them with the next set of decisions about livestock. So yes, people should expect me there. Here's what I won't do, is that there's always a sense that, I need to be on the fire line. And we will have some elected leaders in every fire that feel compelled. I want to tell those elected leaders and those very compassionate New Mexicans, myself included, I'm not a firefighter. I don't belong anywhere near a fire line. You interrupt the chain of command and the professionalism of fighting the fire. I would never do that. And I can make sure that people who are seeking resources and support, and the men and women who are volunteering there, know that we care, we're there, and I will stay as long as they need me to make a difference.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you. And somebody make it rain right now.